When Korean-American pianist Chloe Flower took the stage at the 2019 Grammy Awards, accompanying rapper Cardi B on her performance of Money, her electrifying and charismatic performance on Liberace's Crystal Piano quickly went viral, with descriptions such as piano goddess being written about her online. She has since built up her fan base and career, and it's culminated in her debut self-titled album, Chloe Flower, which was released this summer. To tell us more about her story, I'm delighted to say that she joins us via video for this week's Touch Base in Seoul. Hello, and thank you for being on the show today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's an honor to have you with us today. There seems to be a lot of words to describe yourself. Pianist, composer, producer, fashion influencer, activist. How would you introduce yourself to people who meet you for the first time?
I tend to just introduce myself as a pianist for the most part because that's what I started with first. And, it's always an opportunity to talk about music. People are always traditionally interested in what it's like to be a pianist because it's a rare career. And, hopefully with this album and my continued work, it won't be a rare career. It's like, oh, you're just another pianist like everyone else.
Well, before we get into your new album and that performance with Cardi B, let's talk a bit more about your beginnings. I believe you started piano at the shockingly young age of 2. How did you end up starting so young? And what kind of musical training did you end up receiving?
I didn't start conservatory level training until I was 12, which is very late. Everyone's like, you're so behind. You're so old at 12 years old. But I did start learning the piano at 2, and I played the violin and cello as well. And I was so lucky to have parents who not only recognized my talent, but also were able to nurture it. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And I never wanted to do anything else. Like, there was nothing else. I don't think there's anything else I could do for, 12 to 14 hours a day.
So you always knew that you'd be making a career playing the piano?
Definitely. I definitely always knew. I don't think there was any question for me about anything else. Actually, there was this one time when I wanted to be an astronaut, but I knew that wasn't going to happen. That was kind of outside my lane. So other than that, yes, piano.
So you were trained classically, I believe, but then what made you expand your music into incorporating other modern genres such as pop and hip hop?
I've always loved pop music growing up. I always thought they were two separate things, right? My career is piano, classical piano, and not even composition, just learning the piano. And pop music was more for when I'm having fun or, with my friends or, exercise even. But I always really appreciated it, and I knew I wanted to do something more with it. It wasn't until I saw Vanessa Mae for the first time when I was very young. I saw one of her CDs, and I was like, "What is she doing?" And I listened to her music, and it kind of opened that channel, where I felt like, oh, there could be something outside of it. So it was always in the back of my mind, but it was never really a career option until 2010, really, when I signed with Babyface.
Right. And what was that reaction like when you did start expanding into this realm from those around you? How did they react?
It was actually got a really positive reaction from most people, especially, having even my piano teachers, I would play them some crossover music and some ideas, and they didn't totally shut me down. They actually supported it a little bit. And so I think given that reaction, and also the reaction of Babyface, who's one of the most amazing prolific producers and writers, and he felt like there was a potential for not only the sound, but for me as an artist, as a musician, even though I wasn't a singer. And so I think that gave me the confidence to continue forward. Even when, I felt like no one else was doing it and people didn't understand, I would do a lot of explaining. Now I can just be like, watch the Cardi B video and, watch this video, watch Instagram. But, back then we didn't have Instagram and social media the way we do now. So it was a little bit more difficult to explain.
As you said, in 2010, you started working with the legendary producer that is Kenneth Edmonds, better known as Babyface. And that seemed to be the starting point of how you ended up collaborating with such amazing artists in the pop and R&B and hip-hop world, such as Celine Dion, Nas, and Swiss Beats. So how did you end up first working with Babyface? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. It was actually an amazing, I say Jai Ho, which I think is like destiny in Hindi. I felt like I met him at a concert once, very briefly, hardly spoke to him. And I remember that he was such an amazing producer and writer. And so, years down the road, I decided, like it was around 2010, I decided I'm going to really pursue this crossover sound with pop, with hip hop, not with electronic music as, I had heard in most traditional classical crossover albums, but I wanted it to be hip hop. I wanted it to be pop. I wanted to have some R&B and pop influence. And so I Googled Babyface, I Googled Kenny Edmonds in the computer, and um, his manager's email came up. And so I emailed her, Susan Markheim, and she emailed me back right away. It was Christmas time. She's like, Kenny is traveling, but I'll send him your demo. I did a tiny little demo. He listened to it, and I guess the timing was right. And he listened to it. I had a meeting with him in January after Christmas, and he signed me that day. And so it was really like Google, amazing Google and the manager and the right timing. So it was really, I think, like meant to be, right?
Right, that's an incredible story. And that the fact that it was you who approached Babyface as well, you found him out and made it happen. Your Wikipedia page says it was Babyface who, quote unquote, discovered you. But in reality, you were the driving force who made it happen, who made yourself to be discovered like that.
Yeah, I think he discovered me in this, and I discovered him, at the same time. I think that he discovered a potential and, potential musician that he could work with, but also mentor me. And, definitely without him seeing that potential, I wouldn't have been able to perform with Cardi B. I wouldn't have the background and the experience in pop music and hip hop music without his help. So I think we discovered each other.
Right, so you signed with his label and you were working behind the scenes, developing your career. And then it all eventually led to this absolutely show-stopping performance with Cardi B at the 2019 Grammys. It left many on social media asking who you were, and you practically stole the show. How was it performing with her, and what did you make of that response afterwards?
I was so nervous. In fact, I remember when Alicia Keys was introducing us and no one knew I was performing. I wasn't really allowed to talk about it. I didn't talk about it because I didn't really think, I was just, there accompanying Cardi. I didn't expect any of that press. But as the gate was coming up, I was like, oh my God, why do I do this to myself? Why am I doing this? My first live television performance is in the Grammys with Cardi B. Like, I have to do an amazing job. I can't ruin her performance, right? So it was very nerve wracking, but at the same time, it felt very authentic. I didn't have, we had a lot of rehearsals, but I didn't have a movement coach working with me, just for myself. Cardi's team helped me, but it was just, I was kind of just thrown on stage, be authentic, be yourself, do what you feel. And her team trusted me to do that. So that's just how it happened. And I didn't know that the cameraman was going to be there as long as he was. He was really close and he was supposed to go wide. And when he was still there, I thought, I'll just keep looking at him. I don't know what else to do. So it just worked out. It was so crazy. It was just, really crazy. Again, another amazing opportunity. But, I was prepared for it as well.
And that piercing stare that you did put on camera was quite, it was very electrifying. It was something that really drew the audience in. And I understand Cardi B herself was very supportive in her own ways as well.
She is so supportive. She was supportive throughout the whole process, throughout rehearsals. She wanted me to have my solos. She helped pick my outfit. She paid for Liberace's piano to come from Las Vegas. We didn't have that piano until a few days before the performance, and she paid for that to come all the way from Las Vegas, have it redone so that she could dance on it, because it's traditionally an acrylic top. You can't really step on it. So we had to have the top redone so it would protect the piano. And she did all that. And, she said she wanted me to have my moment in fashion and music. And it was so sweet. And then she was so happy for me afterwards, invited me to dinner to celebrate. And it was so nice. She's such a girl's girl. And I think that was another huge learning experience for me. I don't come across that many women in the entertainment industry who are as gracious as her and as generous. And so I hope to be like that for, other female artists, especially pianists and instrumentalists.
It seems like since that performance, not only did you get greater exposure, but it seemed to manage to really cement your own style. The couture dress at the Grammys performance was really quite something. But seems you've since performed in bigger, more elaborate dresses. And I saw in another interview about how nervous you were looking at the camera at the Grammys stage, but you seem to have really owned that look at the camera since then. Am I reading too much into that? How much of a turning point was that performance for you?
It was a huge turn. You're not reading into it too much at all. I as a pianist, as I'm trained to not even look at the audience or acknowledge that they exist, really, right? And when I did the performance, we did a sound check on the Friday before the Grammys, and I asked Tanisha Scott, who is the creative director for Cardi and choreographing the entire performance. I asked her. The camera was really near me at the beginning. I don't know how live television works. Am I supposed to ignore it? Am I supposed to look at it? Am I supposed to, what am I supposed to do? And she said, if you want to look at it, look at it. If you don't feel like looking at it, don't. It's just do what feels natural. And that was her advice. And so, I think because I had the permission from the team that I could look at the camera when it felt natural and when it happened, I just did it. And I was definitely really nervous afterwards because I came off stage and I was like, oh my God, I looked at the camera for so long and so hard. I don't know. Do I look crazy? I'm so embarrassed, because I'm just not used to that. And then as soon as, I got the feedback that I did, I realized that, I can change my performance too, not just the sound, not just the look, but also the way and the style in which I perform. I can actually look at my audience and engage with them, which I didn't do that much prior to. I felt almost like it was wrong because it went against my training. And so that was definitely a big learning experience for me too. I learned so much from that quantum leap performance. I was the same person with the same music on Saturday night as I was Monday morning, and nothing had changed about me or my music, but I learned a lot. I learned I can look at the camera and I can look at the audience and engage with them, on a different level. It's fun.
And that turning point led to your debut album titled Chloe Flower, that was released this summer, with the music composed, performed and produced all by yourself. I understand it was recorded from your home in New York during the pandemic. YouTube viewers can see the amazing apartment that you have with the amazing Liberace piano there as well. Can you tell us more about the album?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited about my album. I'm so proud of it. I've been working on it for 10 years. And, half of it I did during the pandemic, but the other half I had recorded over 200-300 songs with Babyface, and he helped mentor me and produce this album with me and taught me everything I know to how to produce, how to write beats, how to use pop song structure. And so I wanted to incorporate all of those years and all of what I had learned into this album and create, my own story. And it can be interpreted any way, but ultimately, it was about the cycle of life. You're born with innocence, and then, you go through these trials and you can suffer and you go through hard times. And so that was kind of the second act, suffering. And Deepak Chopra does a little bit of spoken word to kind of guide you through that experience, because it is, an album with no lyrics. So I used his spoken word to help guide the listener should they need that or want that. And then ending with, hope, and that was the last act. And so I kind of set it up like an opera, in 3 acts, because I really wanted people to listen to it as a whole body of work instead of just singles. There's nothing wrong with listening to just singles too. I love releasing singles, but I also wanted the album to tell a story and you to be able to hear it from beginning to end. And so I have the prelude, which is like a tribute to the Grammy performance. And then at the end, I kind of have an end credits type, I thought of the Sound of Music end credits. So it's a medley of all the songs that I wrote on the album. And I turned that into a medley. I wrote that on Christmas morning, at 5 a.m. I woke up and I was I think I have a medley idea, and did it that day. It was so crazy. So I was really excited about having that and kind of bookending the album with a beginning and an end. That makes sense.
Right, well, our time has flown by, and we didn't even get a chance to talk about your philanthropic work outside of music, something you have been involved in personally for a long time, I understand. You're a supporter of music education and therapy and an advocate for the right against human trafficking. Can you briefly tell us about these causes and how important they are to you?
Absolutely. They're so, they've always been so important to me. I think, again, like what we talked about earlier, having parents who were able to nurture my talent. I feel so lucky to have had that. And I feel that it's important for me to, contribute to giving that opportunity to other people, making classical music, making instrumental music, making music education more accessible, whether you want to be a musician or not. And what I found was that music education is actually an amazing tool, as is music therapy, for preventing human trafficking. Like music education programs give, young kids discipline, dignity, community, a sense of identity, and these are all things that prevent them from entering the human trafficking space, whether it's on the supply or demand side. So music education as a tool to prevent human trafficking has been something that I've been working on since 2000. Well, I've been working on anti-human trafficking since 2006, but it's something that I started putting together like 2010. So definitely really big promoter of music education, especially for that reason.
So finally, what's next for you? Could there perhaps even be a concert in Korea at some point?
I really hope so. 여기서 태어났으니까 한국말 잘 못해요. 근데 I really want to come to Korea. I really want to do a concert there. It's my favorite country.
Well, fantastic. I'm sure many fans would be very much looking forward to your performance here. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. We've been speaking to Chloe Flower, and her self-titled album is out now. Ms. Flower, thank you once again for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.